Hi, welcome to today's webinar entitled KaiNexus in Action. I'm Jeff Roussel, Vice President of Sales for KaiNexus. I'm really excited to take you guys through a tour of KaiNexus. We try to do these in-action webinars a couple of times per year just to show everybody the progress that we continually strive to make within our platform. We practice continuous improvement also, and hopefully that will show up in what we go through today. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a little bit of logistics. We're going to spend about 25 minutes going through the presentation, which is a demo of KaiNexus. And then we're going to try to save about 5 minutes for Q&A. You can use the GoToWebinar meeting panel to submit a question, and I'll try to answer as many of them as I get. And then just know that we will send a recording link and the slides, although they're not too many, to this webinar today afterwards. So if you have to leave for any reason, we can catch you back up. So let's go ahead and get started. KaiNexus is a continuous improvement software solution. We were actually founded under the belief of helping our customers to create and sustain and spread a culture of continuous improvement. I think there's just an underlying belief here that creating a culture that continuously improves itself is just one of the best ways that any organization can make sure that it's getting the results that it wants over time. Just like in almost any solution, there tends to be a combination of people, process, and technology. We see the same thing for continuous improvement. On the people side, essentially you're developing the right leadership behaviors to guide your organization properly. And then you have to design and implement the right improvement processes to make those successful. But you also need a technology to make sure that you're optimizing that process. And then sometimes it can be the difference between success or mediocrity from an improvement culture. KaiNexus is that technology, and we believe that the technology around continuous improvement needs to be specific to continuous improvement, and ultimately it needs to solve certain specific problems that come about when you're trying to manage an improvement culture. Internally, we call these the 5 improvement pillars, but the goal for us is to solve problems around visibility and provide a way for our customers and their employees to collaborate with one another around improvement more effectively, and then to develop a standard that you can maintain throughout your organization. And at the end of the day, we're creating a knowledge repository that gives you access into the collective improvement knowledge within your company and an understanding of what the real benefit or impact of that is to your organization. So let's talk about a little bit about the specifics there. We believe that improvement is something that people have to do and have to practice, not just something that you document or write down. And within KaiNexus, we've developed what's called the improvement cycle to make sure that we're actually facilitating change, right? So improvements in KaiNexus walk through a very specific workflow where an improvement is captured, and then certain steps are taken to ensure that it's implemented. We then provide a mechanism to measure the benefit of that improvement, and then a way to broadcast or share what you're doing so others can learn from it. And by doing this and making sure this cycle happens, we maximize both the number of improvements that happen and the impact of each improvement. We also provide a management system that we're going to look through today that essentially is the screens and the reports and the dashboards that give you an opportunity to make better decisions around your improvement culture. The way we do that is by incorporating information in KaiNexus in a very specific and standard way. And so at a base level, all of the work in KaiNexus is encapsulated in an object called an improvement. And this is a really interesting mechanism in the platform because it can do so many things. It's very flexible. It's built on a framework that each customer configures, but it gives you a place of letting your front lines manage improvement activities that they're participating in. And it works great for those kind of standalone improvement projects that just about everyone within an organization ends up doing. What's interesting, though, is it also can then become the building blocks for much larger and I would say more sometimes strategic or top-down efforts, such as projects, whether they be improvement projects or just general projects, or we see people doing Kaizen events and rapid improvement events all the time, or even teaching things like green belt and yellow belt training classes in KaiNexus. The way we've designed the system is it gives you one place to manage all of your improvement efforts. And by all, I mean, you know, the concept of bottom-up improvement where you're engaging your front lines, the top-down work where you're strategically choosing projects to work on, and then even visualizing that around your strategy deployment to make sure that you're working on the things that really are going to support the goals that you've set for your organization. So I'm going to do my best to walk through all of this and show you guys what we've done. We are continually making updates to the platform, so if you've seen it before, hopefully I'll be able to show you something new. And if this is your first time, well, welcome, and hopefully you enjoy what I'm about to go through. Okay. So I'm logged into KaiNexus, and let me kind of orient you in the platform just so you understand kind of the different areas in KaiNexus. I typically think of the system as having three main functional areas. The first is what I call the display area, and it's really just this big rectangle here in the middle of the screen, and you can really do a lot in this display area. I'm going to come back to this over time. I happen to be showing a dashboard that customers use to communicate announcements to their employees, but there's so many things that you can do with this display area. And then on the left here we have what I call the advanced menu. The advanced menu is something that that not every employee is going to use in KaiNexus, but for those people that need a little bit more powerful interface and some more advanced features, they're going to spend a lot of time in this menu, and we'll definitely look at that as we go through the webinar. And then at the top here, and it really doesn't look like a menu at all, but I consider this to be the simple menu, and this is where really a lot of KaiNexus users spend the majority of their time, and quite frankly that's done on purpose because one of our goals is to make improvement participation as easy as possible. We don't want to confuse people that might be doing improvement work you know, as a small sliver of their overall job responsibilities. So to that end, one of the first kind of sections that we'll look at, and it's kind of, you know, I guess similar to maybe a Facebook icon with a little red number here, is what we call the notifications section. So KaiNexus is built on the premise that if you communicate with employees on a proactive basis, you're going to have a better chance at engaging them in improvement. And we do that with notifications. Now, keep in mind that in the background, the notifications are built around a framework, and so you configure settings where you really can control when and how and which people receive certain types of notifications. But quite honestly, a number of our users, this is where they spend most of their time. They let the system notify them of things that are important, and then they'll come in and they'll handle their business whenever they need to. What's really cool too is these things also can be delivered via email, so in a lot of ways people can just kind of maintain their standard work environment yet still be kept in the loop about the improvement projects that they're on. Then we have a quick search, and I'll be the first to admit that showing off a search may not be the most impressive thing in a product, but what's interesting is we converted the quick search to be from a keyword search to one that is now a search around relevancy. And so within KaiNexus, whenever we do a search, there's a score that is generated that will tell you how closely a certain project matches to the topic that you're looking for. And what this really solves is it gives people the opportunity to just search for topics and search for keywords and search for issues and really see, well, what's happening in the organization? What are other people working on that might be similar to the topic that I'm interested in? And quite frankly, I can then quickly look and see, what's happening within this project and who's working on it, and what's the last activity that's happened here. And I get visibility into what my colleagues are working on. Right? And that's a key component in the KaiNexus platform. I'll stay on this screen just to kind of highlight what we call the improvement screen here. And what you'll see is there's a couple of ways of looking at information. We have tabs across the top that are very just easy ways of accessing information. You can see we've had a recent comment since the last time I looked at this improvement. And then on the right here, we've got some of the information panes, like the team working on it, the dates, files, and links that can be shared. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're giving people a place to come and collaborate with one another around improvement projects. And you build this on a framework. Each customer configures their improvement framework to meet their specific methodology needs. But once you do that, now your users, your employees, have a very standard way to come and collaborate with one another around improvement work. One of my favorite features that we added a little while back, but it's this follow button, and it really gives you the opportunity where if you see something that's interesting that maybe other people are working on, you can choose to follow it and self-select your way to be notified about this improvement or this project. And that's just been something that our users have really given us great feedback around to help enhance the visibility that they get in seeing how other people are doing improvements throughout an organization. Then from the search button, we have the create button, and this is where in that improvement cycle we would capture a new improvement. I think what's interesting here again is that because KaiNexus is built on such a flexible framework, each of our customers creates a different framework of their improvement types. So I'm showing 4 improvement types here, but quite frankly, this is something where each customer has a different implementation and a different set of improvement types, and it gives you an opportunity to manage so many different things from little simple just do it's to more advanced A3s or even big strategic projects. You can do that all in KaiNexus because you configure the framework of the information. Now we'll get out of the kind of simple toolbar because the other place that most individuals end up using KaiNexus is this section that we call boards. Now, boards in KaiNexus has been a very, very important part of what we do. It's given us a way to create virtual visual management around an entire improvement culture. The boards can be used in so many different ways because they're essentially built on a framework. And so while we looked at an announcement board, we see things like personal dashboards, we see things like team dashboards that now give people the ability to manage improvement work together with others. And so I'm looking at a team dashboard that shows me kind of the metrics of my Dallas office and my Austin office together. But each of these teams could very easily configure boards that showed off huddle boards, that showed off Gemba walk boards, or really anything to that end. So we'll take a quick look at a huddle board, and I think this is just an interesting solution that a number of our customers do now. Not every one of your teams is going to be ready for electronic huddle boards, but I think some will, and we're seeing great success with teams now that can come together and share the work around progressing ideas through a workflow. So we can see the new ideas that our team has submitted, and then the ones that are in the parking lot, and the ones we're actively working on, and it just gives us a way to come together and collaborate around this information. What we see is that each team will have a bit of a standard that the organization will create, but then each team can configure the board to show certain things like best practices and certain metrics that will be unique to them. And where we really see this becoming advantageous is, one, if you're not all standing in the same break room, well, having this in a virtual way really gives you a collaborative capability. But two, if you're the process improvement coach in an organization and you've got 10 or 20 or more teams, being able to go from one board to the next without leaving your desk, that's a huge advantage in being able to help and support your organization and help and support more people than you can from manual processes. So I see this kind of team board capability as a huge advantage. But again, I think the concept here is the board is built around a framework, and so team boards is just one way of communicating with one another. Viewing projects around strategic goals is another way. This is a great example of a kind of a strategic board that shows us our true north initiatives and tracks metrics around each of those initiatives, but then also lets us see all the specific projects that we're working on within those initiatives and kind of where they sit at the moment. And so when we see a project that's at risk or behind schedule, we have now this ability to jump in and really get a sense of the details and even if necessary leave a comment and participate here and hopefully provide better coaching. So one of the goals of this is to provide visibility so that when a project does have a problem and it does go behind schedule or what have you, we can then more quickly coach and coach more effectively around that situation. We also see boards at a bit of a higher level. We see a number of organizations use things like admin boards, where we set up, for example, bottleneck boards. Again, because this is built on a framework, we have the opportunity to visualize things like projects that are severely overdue or projects that are awaiting managerial approval, and maybe they've been awaiting that approval for more than a week, that sort of thing. And again, the goal here is just to provide visibility. So if I'm the process improvement expert at an organization, I need to know how and where to spend my time, and these boards, such as a bottleneck board, really point me in the problematic areas so that I can take the proper action to move the culture forward. So we see all kinds of capabilities there, pick chart boards, project phase boards. Again, I don't exactly know how every organization is going to use this, but by being able to visualize this type of information, you really can make better decisions based on what's happening, based on data, rather than just relying on intuition. And in fact, that kind of brings us to an interesting new feature that we added recently. So KaiNexus now supports what we call milestones, which actually provide a way now for customers to create their own configurable workflows and toll gates. And the feedback we got from customers is that we really liked your workflow of how projects went from being active to overdue to completed to maybe starting out in a new status, that sort of thing. But a lot of times people had other needs of they needed certain approvals to happen at different stages of a project. In fact, we have a number of clients that do this in their PDCA process. So at each step of the P, D, C, and A, they've developed a milestone in order to make sure that the correct approvals and checkpoints happen. So just a little bit of customization here on how you would configure a system like this. So we got about 5 more minutes. Let's talk a little bit about the concept of reports in KaiNexus. There's a few things that I think are really interesting around reports. So one, I think the ability to see status is very helpful for people. Status is a way of understanding when good and bad things happen throughout your organization. And what's really interesting to me is that this status, because we have what's called a network in KaiNexus, the status can be viewed really at any level. You can look at it across your entire culture or hone into just one or two specific locations within a culture. But by knowing what's happening, we can see, you know, whether things like overdue work is starting to pile up in a certain department, and then again we can go and take that corrective action. But what we try to highlight for people is a snapshot of 3 different metrics that allow you to really understand the success of improvement within your culture. Right? The first of those we call activity, and it's simply the raw activity that your employees put into your improvements and your improvement projects. So by understanding things like how well and how often do people submit and complete projects, again, we can make better decisions about what's needed within a culture. In fact, this is a great example, right? We see over time a really good, steady number of completed and submitted projects, but then something happened somewhere in the mid-February timeframe where things kind of got flat here. And so, again, if I'm the PI coach in an organization, you know, I'm going to spend a little time with this team to try to figure out if something changed in mid-February that we can maybe kind of solve so we can get the curve moving in the right direction again. So the activity really does an excellent job of showing you how much improvement is happening, and then the engagement gives you metrics to start help you to understand who's actually doing that improvement. So as you look at the different types of users that you have and whether or not they're highly engaged in improvements or highly engaged in projects, and you can do this over time so you understand whether or not you're moving in the right direction or maybe you have to take some corrective action. So engagement really starts to put some metrics around the activity to make sure that it's spread out correctly across your users. And then impact, quite frankly, is the benefit of the improvement work that you're doing. And we visualize that impact in a couple of ways. One is in a summary, a really excellent way of taking impact numbers and seeing how they help facilitate cost savings, revenue generation, time savings, safety, satisfaction, etc. within your employee population. But then also in what we call scoreboards, where you can then start to compare departments and people and projects and get a real understanding of what are your most impactful improvement efforts and how can you spend more time on the things that matter the most to your organization. And so projects, so activity, engagement, and impact, the goal is to give you an overview of the success or the challenges that you're having around improvement. And again, hopefully you're making better decisions about where to go next. And then last, we'll talk just very briefly about a new feature that we added recently called badges. Like almost everything in KaiNexus, badges was built around a framework, but it was built to solve the problem of how can I keep track of people in my organization and understand the level of involvement that they have with improvement. And so we built a framework that allows people to create unique, individualized badges and then assign those badges based on certain events that happen within KaiNexus. So for instance, I know that the user Greg here, I can see that Greg has submitted his first improvement. I can also see that he's participated in a Kaizen event, and I can see that he's Green Belt certified. And again, you know, I think the opportunities here are endless in that you can really customize this so you can keep track of how your people are participating in the improvement process. So there's a lot more within the platform in this limited time. Hopefully I've given you a good overview. If you'd like a more customized demo, I would strongly recommend that you reach out to us. You can find that information on our website, and from there Give me one sec, guys. Having some. All right, sorry guys, having some issues with the slide deck. So if you do want a more customized demo, I'd recommend that you just look us up on www.kinexus.com. There's a number of buttons there that you can contact us, and we'll be more than happy to kind of walk you through what we're doing. So before we get into the questions, let's talk about our next webinar. It's going to be March 28th, which is really just around the corner. Same time, so 1 p.m. Eastern. Actually, I think that's an hour earlier than we did it today. So 1 p.m. Eastern this time. And it's going to be with Karen Ross, who is a co-author of a book called The Toyota Way to Service Excellence. And I'm excited about this. I love kind of the concept of creativity in a service environment, and then I love number 2 here, the concept of, you sometimes have to act your way into a new way of thinking, not necessarily think your way into a new way of acting. So I'm excited for this. I hope you'll join us for this webinar, and again, you can sign up for that at the www.kinexus.com/webinars. And then as far as other resources, I'd strongly recommend that, if you're in continuous improvement and you're interested in kind of that concept and that message, please use KaiNexus's website as a resource for you. We try to do as good a job as possible at providing helpful things like ebooks. We post all of our webinars in a library that you can download on demand. We also have an improvement podcast that you can sign up for and listen to. And then if you're not subscribed to our blog, I'd strongly recommend it. We get great feedback on the writers on that blog and the content that we try to provide. Our goal is to help people spread a culture of continuous improvement, and we really are focused on that in the content that we provide. And so let's wrap this up, and we'll see if we have any questions. The first question actually is how could I get a more customized demo? And again, I feel like I kind of just answered this, but you can reach out to me directly, but by all means, I'm jeff.roussel@kinexus.com, or if you go to our website at www.kinexus.com, there's a little question that'll kind of help you to see a demo there. Okay, we have a question. What types of projects can be managed within KaiNexus? So, I'd say this one's pretty open-ended, and because KaiNexus is built on a framework, I think that there's an opportunity to manage almost any type of project. We see customers that manage A3s, they manage Just Do It's. We see our Lean Six Sigma customers that manage DMAIC projects, but we also see people that aren't Lean at all, and they manage both improvement projects and just kind of general projects in KaiNexus. I think that we provide a simple, intuitive, easy-to-use interface that if you're not an expert at any particular kind of project management field or functionality, KaiNexus may be a good opportunity to help manage and track the work that you're doing. And I've got one here. What employees in an organization are the most typical to use KaiNexus? That depends. It depends on each customer. I mentioned earlier, I feel like we kind of support bottom up and top down, and I think we see that across our clients. Some of our customers, our partners, they engage their front lines, and so we see frontline employees submitting improvements into KaiNexus and then being a part of the implementation of that improvement. And we see others that are more project focused, and they're kind of more trained project managers are the primary users. So I think it goes either way, and I think just depending on what problem you're trying to solve, it might be worth checking it out just to see if we could help solve that. Okay, great. So we're out of time. I want to thank everybody for coming to this webinar. I hope it was helpful for you, and I look forward to the next one.